Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discovering True Health, your weekly deep dive into health and wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our upcoming shows. You can also check out additional information on our website, Instagram, or Facebook. All those links are below. So today we'll be learning tips and strategies on how to shift from surviving to thriving in our lives. So I have on with me today, Christin Collins. She is a life coach, global thought leader, speaker, podcaster, former healthcare executive, and author. She's author of Her Phoenix Rising, A Journey to Health and Healing Through Self-Love. She'll also be a featured speaker at the upcoming TEDx Westshore conference in February 2022. So if you're in the area, definitely go check her out. So as a former healthcare executive, she thought she was doing everything she could to live a vibrant, healthy life, but she still struggled with health issues. So she'll be sharing with us what she's learned along her journey to uncover the root cause of her health struggles and find true health. So welcome, Christin, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Christy, this just lights me up. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely. So now your book, I loved it. It was such a wonderful read. I got out my highlighter. There's a lot of folded pages in it. So I really got a lot out of it. It was such a beautiful journey. Now in your book, you talk a lot about how along your health journey, you slowly came to this awareness that some injuries and illnesses could not be explained or addressed by modern medicine. And you state that healthcare in the US is not designed to solve core reasons of people's ill health. The system is paid to repair you after you get sick and is focused on particular ailments versus looking at the whole person within their environment. So as a former healthcare executive, in what ways is the healthcare system flawed or broken that you've witnessed over the years working in it?
Sure, absolutely. And I think it's interesting. The healthcare system is not broken. It is operating exactly as designed. And, there's many things that it provides that we need. If we get in a car accident, we break some bones. It's, got some really important offerings to individuals and to community. My journey became about the awareness that a lot of disease is preventable. And even when you sometimes contact disease, it can be reversible. And that blew my mind because I thought, well, why aren't we all then working towards not going there, not getting the disease? So it's not a stab at the modern medicine. There's beautiful things that modern medicine offers. It's just that we are responsible for our own health. And so my journey and what I like to share with community is about owning your own health and then therefore not stepping into the need to enter the healthcare system.
Absolutely, yes. Preventative. Now in 2015, you took a role as the system director of health and wellness for a hospital. And you and your colleague developed an incredible program within the hospital that was based on health and well-being and creating the optimal healing environment. So can you tell us about the wellness program you created and what it entailed?
I would love to. And that was the transformation that occurred for me personally, was on this journey with this maverick, ahead of his time leader within the healthcare system that had joined not from here. And he said, I want to build this optimal healing environment. And I didn't understand what that meant. But in about 9 months of learning, I began to understand that built environment, how we set up our community, how we set up our workspace, how we interact as colleagues, how the employer treats the employee or empowers the employee, the foods that we put into our body, the amount of physical activity we take. All of these were components that were part of creating an optimal life of well-being. So it was such an aha. That was the big catalyst for me understanding I was in charge of my own health. And it was simultaneous with my own health starting to decline as I got through middle age. So we were able to create a built environment that, to me, it was almost like a museum spa We had art in the hallways of a hospital, and where it would be so neat because we would see patients or staff or families that were visiting stroll and take a breath as they went through our main hallway and looked at this beautiful art. We had outdoor pathways, walkability, bike paths. We put in some exercise equipment so that people could actually come to campus to work on their wellness, not just when they were sick, and also as a way to blow off steam if you were visiting a loved one within the hospital.
Right.
And then we took the wellness center that was there. And at the time, it really wasn't a wellness center, it was a gym. And we brought in all kinds of programming so that people can come work on their wellness, whether it was a talk about diabetes, whether it was a meditation series. We had not only massage, but we brought in an acupuncturist, cranial sacrum therapy, hypnotherapy. So all kinds of tools to support people on their wellness journey.
This needs to be in every hospital.
Amen.
I mean, I personally have had a family member in hospital, and when you mention people that are visiting family, yeah, I mean, you feel like all the hallways are green, and after a couple of days, you're just like losing it. You feel like you're in the twilight zone.
Outside and take a deep breath and have
Yes.
some trees that create this beautiful bridle path where you can walk underneath and just catch your breath. And I didn't understand how built environment, really is the foundation for interconnectivity. And so again, becoming familiar with our campus to be well before you actually needed us helped improve outcomes, shorten length of stays, had our patient experience scores go up, and wonderful things like that.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, part of this program, you developed this six-spoke wellness wheel, and they were your guiding principles for the program. So tell us what the six spokes of the wheel are and the significance of each.
Sure. And, it's so fun because we're looking back 6-7 years, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot more people doing work in this space, and thank goodness. But back then it was hard to find programming, even globally, where you could be like, oh, I love what they're doing. They have the model. Let me copy it, because we would have done that. So we had started a lot with food. Food is medicine, and what you're fueling your body with. And so food became that first entry point of wellness, which also then didn't necessarily always go well, because not everybody wanted to hear about how most of your nutrients should be coming from Mother Earth, plants and vegetables and fruit and grains. So in frustration over that discussion, when I'm like, it's not just about eating vegetables. Well, what else is it about? We really thought about, well, it's physical activity, how much you move around, what's your stress level, how is your sleep, how is your mental health, and then what is your purpose? Are you in touch with your why? So when those 6 main themes emerged, and we thought for a whole year, and they're all based on science, but we were deciding, should we bring in smoking cessation? Should we bring in finance? But we really thought mental health and some of the other spokes really covered everything else. So those became our guiding principles. And I still to this day, I have to constantly look around my wheel and make sure that I'm balancing all 6 components.
Yeah, so important. Now the last spoke you talk about was, your knowing your why, and you talked about all of them based on science. So can you talk about the importance of knowing your why in terms of health and well-being? And for those of us who have not yet found our purpose or why, what's a good approach for those of us to get there?
And for me, why was the last spoke. I didn't really know my why. I knew I wanted to serve, but even service can sometimes be misleading when you're serving to gain your own love and acceptance that's not coming from a place of wholeness. So you have to really be careful of, oh, well, I'm here to serve. Well, that's great, but you have to take care of yourself first. And that's hard for a lot of us. But purpose, I really blossomed into thinking about how knowing who you are and knowing why you are, what is your unique, individual, only you reason for being here? And then it can show up across work, home, community, play, joy. Purpose becomes the thread for getting out of bed every morning, no matter what activity you're doing. And one of the things I love about that, it kind of takes the pressure off the employer. Like, I have to find all my happiness or my meaning through work, right? I can find all my happiness and meaning through knowing why I am, who I am, and being comfortable with that. And then finding ways to actualize that throughout the day. My job title doesn't have to necessarily align with my purpose.
I love that. So it's a greater, something for the greater good. It's a higher purpose.
Yeah.
Now you are no longer the systems director at the wellness center at the hospital. What was the catalyst for your decision to end that career?
So we oversaw a leadership change, which then started changing the trajectory of how important well-being was to the overall model. It was not resonating as much. And so that made me sad. Plus my own personal journey was really blossoming, and I'm not clinical. So I didn't have all of that background of honing me in to have a lens that was so reparative. And I just got to the point where it was more constrictive because the model is set up to repair, right? It's not set up, the payment model, the way we're trained. So I hadn't been thriving, for a bit, which was interesting because then when COVID hit, all of a sudden well-being became very, very central to, I think, the whole planet, right? So my work got very exciting in the beginning of the pandemic, but ironically, the pandemic also brought some major financial loss to the healthcare system, and they needed to reduce the work size. And so there was a package that was offered, and I looked at my husband and he was like, well, you're not going to take that, are you? And I said, I would love to, and he said, well, what will you go do? I said, I don't know, but I just really am open to the opportunity to talk about knowing and loving self and, stepping into your why and doing that full time and from my own voice instead of from the healthcare voice. And so I did take the package and I was able to exit healthcare, which I'm forever grateful for that experience. But now being on the other side of it and having my own opportunities to connect with community and hold space is really what my purpose is.
I love that. Now, the program you had at the hospital, was it probably the only hospital in the US that kind of had that sort of wellness program, or is that something that's happening more and more?
It's happening more and more for sure, which is really, really exciting. So like I said, I looked a lot of places trying to find the model, right? And then just bring it home. And there were some places that were doing some things that I loved. We were blessed that we just became a compilation of our own ideas and other people's ideas. We partnered locally, state, nationally, globally with different people. So we had a unique package and we were very blessed. My colleague and I, my boss actually, we traveled to a lot of conferences and we spoke about the programs that we had put in place. And I promise you, a lot of the attendees that were clinical were like, how did you get to do that? How did you get yes to that? And I realized how lucky we were that we were able to do what we did. Now, I will tell you that there's many hospitals that are definitely trying to get into this space, but I feel that the true disruption to really shift the lens on what does health mean, never mind thriving and optimal well-being, that's got to come from outside of the healthcare system. It's going to take the healthcare system a while to make that shift. Right. And a lot of people don't want to own their own health. They want to come in for the 4-minute visit and get the script and not
it's
actually
so ingrained. It's so ingrained in everyone. Like you said, that's how our healthcare system's built and it's how we've all been born into it. So we're all, this is the way it is. And, now everybody's, there's a lot of people that are kind of awakening to, like you said, their own journey to health and being responsible for their own health. So.
And to your point, it's a journey, right? And a lot of us want, we're an immediate gratification society. So what pill can you give me to lower my blood pressure? And it's like, why don't you actually do some of the spokes of the wellness wheel, and then your blood pressure will probably, if not absolutely, go down. That takes longer, and it takes you. So it's interesting, the shifting. The neat part about doing the work was that, you know, you were being a lighthouse, and then when people would show up when they were ready. So it
Yeah.
wasn't out there trying to recruit people. It was like
Planting seeds here and there.
Yes.
Mm.
And so the people that did show up, and it wasn't just like you show up and then it's perfect, you know, it's an up and down, but oh my gosh, the results that we would see with people who are actually ready to do that work, unbelievable, so inspiring. Energy, health, you know, getting rid of diseases, weight falling off, skin glowing, relationships thriving. It was like, it was so fun to watch.
I guess the place to put the program would be, you know, not only hospitals, but start them at kindergarten. Let's get these programs in at kindergarten through every single grade. So that's how everybody grows up.
I love that. You gave me chills everywhere. So two things I want to highlight. One, in our daycare, our head of food and nutrition was totally on this bus. And so he created a program that each week it was a color, and then there was either a fruit or vegetable that the kid would learn. And then they would have some food that was about that. So the daycare kid was going home going, Mom, I had eggplant today. Do we eat eggplant? You know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing we did in this built environment was we took this big piece of grass and we made it a garden, a teaching garden, partnered with the middle school next door. And then they would come over. And I mean, some people for the first time ever saw what a tomato was. They didn't even know where ketchup was from. So we incorporated with the school next door too. Like, you know, so it's not always with the parent, because sometimes it's hard, you know, for the parent to get the kid, you know, to make that change. So it's a chicken, egg, or cart, horse, you know, so we can start with someone in the family and they can start on that path. And maybe that's a seed within that family.
Yes. All right, let's get into your personal health journey. So what started you on your journey of seeking out a different way of achieving true health and finding root causes outside of the standard healthcare system?
You know, thank you, Christy, for that question. It's interesting because I feel blessed that I had health issues. I marvel at people that are on a journey and do this work that didn't have a major life disruption like I did. So mid 40s, now overseeing health and well-being for a $2 billion company, right? Vegan triathlete, thinking I'm doing awesome, probably a size 6, you know, normal. In hindsight, I had some things that would bubble, but I just wrote them off as, oh, I'm getting older. This is normal. So I did a spectrum of blood work just to optimize my, you know, nutrients and stuff, thinking that it's all going to come back awesome. And long story short, the marker for inflammation was so over the graph. It was actually almost off the page of the report.
Wow. And this is while you were a vegan triathlete.
Overseeing health and well-being for a healthcare system. And so we kind of glazed through that marker. And my doctor said, oh, they must have forgotten to do that panel. And I said, well, that's silly. There's 100 of them on here and they did 99 of them. Why wouldn't they measure that? And then we looked again and the little dash was literally off the graph. And let me tell you, that scared me so much.
Yeah.
Because I knew in the state of inflammation, disease is created, and I am a cancer survivor and I've had a couple other health issues. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing wrong? I'm a vegan triathlete. I'm not overweight. I, you know, work in healthcare. Like, this is crazy, but that blessing had.
And what were your symptoms that kind of sparked you to go get all the testing?
You know, there's a bunch of different ones. Exhaustion, right? Exhaustion. My stomach would blow up every afternoon. So I was like, oh, I must be allergic to gluten. Oh, I must be allergic, you know, trying to figure out why was I getting a stomach ache, headaches, moodiness, like things that I just wrote off and just were normal. So I found that very interesting that I didn't have a major aha, like, oh, you are chronically inflamed. It was the marker that literally saved my life.
Wow. And now you just were talking about how you're a cancer survivor and you had already knew that inflammation was dangerous and can create disease. And from everything I've learned and a lot of the guests I've had on, we talk a lot about that. Can you share a bit more what you've learned about inflammation, what causes it, and what's helped you eliminate it?
Sure. I will tell you, there's a lot of factors that can create that fight or flight within our bodies and create that inflammation. And sometimes it is food, for sure. And so I learned a lot about the microbiome and gut health and all that, and really worked hard to fuel my good bacteria in my gut so that I could decrease the inflammation. And that was very, very helpful. But the real turn of events for me was understanding the mind-body connection and the amount of stress and unhealed trauma that I had thought I had dealt with properly, but I really, really had stored deeply. And I was in constant fight or flight, very, very much working to control my environment so that I would feel safe. And I have done an incredible amount of work understanding how when your body is constantly revving like that, you are going to blow out your capacity to be able to survive that. And I literally had every autoimmune, anything you could come up with a name. Leaky gut, which isn't really a medical term, was kind of the end of my road. And I have now healed my digestive tract. I can eat whatever, I mean, I don't eat whatever I want, but if I'm having one of those days, and I do, it is amazing. All the different components that have come into in alignment for me because I have learned to calm and quiet my mind.
Now, this experience led you to try a lot of different healing modalities. What types of practices and therapies and modalities have you tried, and what has worked for you, and what has really helped you find true healing and wellness and happiness?
I thank you for that question. And what's so cool about it is, and why I kind of shied away from it in my book of saying, you have to do this to obtain, because I know it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. Everybody's different, but what's worked for you?
For me, and it was so cool how just different people would show up and, maybe, hey, have you tried this? Or, hey, this book talked about this, or this practitioner crossed. So I did all kinds of interesting things. It really started at first with meditation, which I was horrible at. Like quieting this mind it was very fun. I did acupuncture. I did lots of hypnotherapy, where not only did I regress, but then also to getting an understanding of my purpose. I did through hypnotherapy. Reprogramming my brain and how I think with my mindset came through hypnotherapy. I have worked with holistic coaches to help me understand that I'm not in charge of everyone. So I have used a lot of different techniques. I find inspiration in different books that I've read. And what I love is that when the student is ready, as we know, the teacher appears. So things I heard 20 years ago, all of a sudden crossed again and kind of stuck to me. So I was really open to whatever crossed and being curious about it and not being threatened or not having to embrace it 100% either, just so I could kind of come up with my own mixology of my own truth.
Right. Yeah. Try it out, see what works, see what doesn't work. And I know, I've been doing hypnotherapy for quite a while, and there's a lot of science that backs it, as well as meditation, and a lot of the other modalities you talked about. So now there's a chapter in your book that is called 134 Bits of Information. And I really love this chapter. Can you tell us about what that is and what lessons you learned from it?
You just gave me chills everywhere. And it's even funnier. I went to that restaurant where Heather and I had that conversation when I went there Saturday. I was just back there.
Wow.
And I sat in that chair, and that was when I learned.
It sounded like a really great restaurant too.
It was a great restaurant, and my husband had never been there. So we went, and I wanted to say to him, this possibly was the restaurant that saved our marriage because it was that pivotal for me to understand that David and I did not have to see everything the same. Actually, that's impossible to happen. And so what executive coach, friend, mentor, guide, Heather Christie, who's in the book a couple times because she's been very impactful for me. She walked me through understanding that for every second, there's millions and millions of bits of information that is coming at us, especially in this global connected society. And our brains can actually host 134 bits. So there's way too much information coming at us for us to possibly mitigate and navigate. So what we do is we try as quickly as possible to get what we can possibly file away or assume we understand, clear it and get it out of the way so that we can go ahead and find those 134 bits and survive this crazy world. So as I understood that information, and I was like, well, wait a minute then. For any truth in any given second, if there's all these variables, but we can only process 134, and we're going to get rid of things through our default mechanisms based on our own history, our own education, our own traumas, our own loves, we're going to miss a lot of those realities, and we're going to come to the 134 bits of truth that works for us. So how is it then when you are going to have a different walk and you're going to see that same moment not exactly the same as me? How do we function? Never mind as a marriage, but as a society. So while that could be really scary, it was the most freeing comment. And I drove home, as you know, because you read my book, and I was having a very difficult argument. And my husband and I don't argue a lot, but when we do, it just makes me, I'm devastated. I hate arguing. And I've learned we need to argue. That's part of this journey, that we don't all see the things the same, way. So we started walking through what we were trying to work through. And instead of me getting uncomfortable and getting into fight or flight, no confrontation, let me run away, I stood there and I listened to him. And then I asked him some questions. And I realized, oh my goodness, the way he saw this situation was totally appropriate and true to him, based on history, based on his lens. Right. And we agreed to disagree. And the fact that we saw it different, and I apologize, I see how you could see that way. And I'm sorry. And that's not what I meant, or whatever it was. And he didn't know what the heck, he didn't know about the restaurant, and he didn't know what went on, but he was just like, what the heck just happened?
Who are you?
Right. And we turned this corner in our marriage where it was like, for me, it was okay now not to agree, and that I could just be curious about, I wonder what he sees. I wonder what his truth is. And I've taken that into my entire being, and how freeing it is to understand we're all different. We all see the same thing different, and we're supposed to.
And that's okay.
So now let's release that and figure out what is the 134 bits that we can come together around.
Absolutely. Oh, it's such an amazing concept to grasp. And what it made me think was, okay, what is coloring my lens to focus that lens on which 134 bits I'm, focusing on,
Beautiful.
Are those things I need to heal within myself, or what am I missing? Can I see this in a different way? So yeah, that was mind-blowing, that chapter for me.
And thanks for bringing the chapter up, because it was really powerful. And I think the opportunity now to pause and contemplate somebody else's lens, right? We have no idea how they got to this moment, and nor do we need to. And then to be able to step into some, curiosity and wonder, empathy, compassion, learnings. What do they see that I'm not seeing? What could I learn from this person? There's so many opportunities when we understand that my truth is going to be different from anyone else's truth. And that's okay. It was so freeing.
Yes, and that's okay. I love that part. And yeah, I think you talked about it a bit in that chapter, how, in relationships, it is okay to have arguments. We're going to have different opinions because of this fact.
Yeah. And if we're not arguing, the confrontation thing just made me feel very unsafe. Right. And so I had to learn that it's okay to disagree. And then also to make sure we're respectful when we disagree. Right.
Right. Learning
Arguments.
how to.
Yeah. Like we don't want to be unsafe or anything like that. But it was so freeing to learn that. And then just the whole process of pressure. I then, you're not being authentic if you're agreeing with everyone all the time. You can't. It's literally impossible to see things exactly. So you're not being true to you, and that's not living. And so how are you sharing your truths? You don't have to do you're a jerk, or, you're wrong, or I'm going to take you out. I'm just like, wow, that's so interesting.
So
I don't see it that way, but I respect and wow. And thank you for sharing that with me. And oh my gosh, I've learned so much from other people just by being willing to sit in a conversation that's not, yeah, me too.
right. Something totally different, totally out there, but and trying to
Right?
understand it and just listening.
Yep. And not being threatened by it.
Need a whole lot more of that these days.
Amen.
Now, you touched on this a bit earlier. You talked about diet and lifestyle playing very important role in our health. Can you share some important takeaways that you've learned along your journey, that you've implemented that are very important, that you found that have impacted your health?
Yeah. And I am going to answer this question probably non-traditionally. Because I learned, how many servings of vegetables and fruit I should have, and approximately how many calories that would be, and how many steps or, triathlons I should go do. And a lot of the literal stuff, it was all from my head inward. It was like this battle of will. Right. And so then if I was weak and I didn't comply with what I knew I should be doing, then what? That's a good opportunity to be mad at self, right? It was just this vicious cycle of having to will my way through my experience. And what I found is that by going inward and actually getting to know and love myself and respect myself and do the healing work that I needed to do and have compassion and empathy for self, now when I'm consuming, or now when it's, well, do I get up and go for that walk, or do I sleep in, or do I have that second bottle of wine, or was that enough for tonight? I'm coming from this internal place towards lifestyle that's much kinder to self. So my consumption and my self deprivation or destruction, this isn't a head game for me anymore. My body tells me I need to go to bed, or I'm sad, I'm going to go be quiet and reflect, or I'm ready to rock it, I'm going to go run 3 miles. My body, my inner self is telling me what my body needs, and I don't any longer count calories. I went to lunch today with a friend. I ordered this awesome salad, and she was like, I love that you ordered this. And I was like, yeah, my body's craving greens. I wasn't like, I have to have a salad. You know what I mean?
Right.
So my answer
honoring yourself
by being in touch with self and liking self and being okay with self and being like, I'm actually going to treat myself to this gorgeous salad and, walk to lunch instead of drive my car. And so I'm finding being in flow with life because I'm coming from a centered whole place, and it's not perfect. I have days that, aren't the best, but for the most part, it's a lot less of this, doing checklists and then being mad at myself if I ate that cookie. I'm like, if I want the cookie, I'm going to have the cookie, but then I know that I probably shouldn't also have the cake, or I should maybe spend 10 more minutes doing something else. So my place of approaching lifestyle now is from inside out.
Beautiful. Now, if you could create the perfect healthcare system, what would it look like?
Wow. I would love to see, and they are out there. There are places that you can go do this. There's not a lot, and sometimes they're expensive and you have to take a lot of airplanes, but really a place where you can come and connect with self, starting with beautiful surroundings, connecting with nature, connecting with art, connecting with culture, music, a lot of respect, and then really having the opportunity to sit with self and get in touch with self. And then all types of different offerings that would, between yoga, which prepares you to sit with self, activities like that, people that can help guide you on your walk to connecting with self and healing self and thriving. Absolutely, all of our alternative pieces that we have. And then, functional physicians that get the interconnectivity of the mind and the body that can support, from that medical stance. And then the acute side, where let's say we had an emergency, or that there was a car accident or something like that, that is welcome to come. But I really have found that so many of us can do so much before we get to that point, that my concentration would be, this is a place you wake up and you're like, I want to find my bike. I want to ride there. I want to have a backpack on with some water and a book. And I want to go and I want to be with like-minded people who are just connecting with self and one another from a place of wholeness and love.
Beautiful.
Mm.
We need those all over the world.
We do. We do.
Yes. And there are some, like you said, there are some, and they're popping up more and more. So it is happening, which is exciting.
And, this virtual world, as interesting as it is, it has opened up the opportunity between, free content on YouTube, between, different ways that you can plug into workshops and conferences. I just did a 3-day workshop virtually last week. And I thought, this isn't going to be good. I can't sit here for 3 days. I attended about 2/3 of it. I had to work some outside of it, but I'll tell you what, I took 6 pages of notes. I learned so much, and I think we're getting better at that. So we don't need, the destination would be amazing, and that's my favorite, and connecting in person is my favorite, but that shouldn't stop us. And you mentioned before we started, and I am the same way, I've gotten back into reading, and reading can take us to that place. So being curious about books that cross, and you're like, I don't know, let me go ahead and self-care through learning through the form of reading from others. So there's a lot of things we could do while we don't have that destination, or maybe it's too expensive or too far. There's ways we can start at home with self.
Absolutely. And like you just mentioned, learning, I think it's also really important to learn from other people's journeys and their journeys to health and healing, because, there's no one size fits all, everybody's body's different. So, you might hear somebody's journey and try what they're trying and see if it works for you, and keep going through that process. And I think that's a really important source of information right now as well.
Agreed.
So I really love the title of your book, which I told you before. It's Her Phoenix Rising, which I feel like it's been my mantra since 2020, and I'm sure a lot of others out there, with everything that's going on, we're all kind of rising from the ashes of the old and creating the new. I'm going to post a link below to your book so everybody can check it out. And we can also reach you at ChristinCollins.com. So I'll post a link to that below as well. Can you tell us what we can find on your website, and tell us about your coaching and the workshops that you do as well?
Sure. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I love if my website can be a tool for you and a resource for you. It's just shedding light on different avenues and different thoughts that may support you on your own well-being journey. Its tagline is "Find it within yourself." And it's really important to me for folks to understand that the answers and that joy and satiation and wholeness and well-being that we're seeking isn't coming through that new car, or isn't coming through that new job title or that next paycheck. It's actually already within us. So I try to provide support so people can understand, I just have to look in here. I have to be quiet long enough for it to, remind me why I'm here. So each week I offer like a 5-minute segment that I put on YouTube just as free content, kind of based on what I'm feeling is going on out there, or what people are weighing in, or what's a topic that would be helpful. Every Friday, I put out an email that again provides tools, articles, support, so people are welcome to join that complimentary e-newsletter. I do have a workshop coming out literally right now, which is a 7-part series that helps people get in touch with that authentic self
Mm.
How can I go ahead and rediscover that beautiful, perfect human that I was born to be? And I've kind of lost along the way. It's a very inexpensive workshop, just a self-guided tutorial that hopefully helps people find that within themselves. And then, yes, I do take a few coaching clients. I'm not able to do a lot of that, but if folks are interested in one-on-one, I am honored to be able to work intimately with folks to help them dive into what might help them find that spark within themselves.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and your journey to health with us. I know it's going to help a lot of people out there. Before we wrap it up, do you have any final words for those of us who are in the midst of our own Phoenix rising?
Yeah, I thank you. Oh gosh, thank you for that. I want to again thank you for your work. I love crossing with amazing, beautiful people who are also trying to support others' journeys. So my thinking on that is to keep going. It is not a light switch and it is not a straight line. And there are days that I'm sad and there are days that I'm off. There are days that I'm very happy and days that I'm on. It's a journey and it's not the destination that we're seeking. That's not life. Life is these ups and downs. And I find, unfortunately, in our downs, those are actually where the greatest amount of lessons and growth can occur. So sit in them, embrace them, be curious about them, and be patient with them. And we're here to help if we can be of service.
Beautiful. Yes, find that silver lining. There's always a silver lining. I've definitely experienced that in my life as well. All right. Well, remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body, the better you're able to stay healthy and prevent disease. And just a reminder, I'm not your doctor, so don't take this as medical advice. If you have specific questions about your healthcare, reach out to your practitioner. And if you like this video, please like and share it with others. This information could really help someone you may know. And hit the subscribe button to be sure you don't miss our future shows. And stay tuned for the next episode of Discovering True Health.